Okay, I think we got the audio straightened back out. I'm recording. I actually remember to turn off the YouTube chat this time. Earlier, right? There wasn't anything too bad in it. No notification. Oh, that was from before. Twitch, I don't know. Twitch notifications. Best thing I could say is double check in all your settings and stuff, make sure everything's turned on, but I feel like I've experienced the same with Twitch, unfortunately. You could try YouTube. I don't really know as much about the YouTube notifications. I don't actually use any on there. Okay. I am jumping back in this afternoon with actually some different stuff. HTTP server, some other PRs in here. So this is making it auto do the index.html if the request doesn't actually have anything specified. So like, you're going to be making a request like whatever, some number, some port, or is the examples? They think they might even use port 80, so you wouldn't have to specify a port. Ordinarily, or I guess let's say today, you would need to do something like this, index.html, in order to get that file, if that's what you wanted to see. If you wanted to see some other HTML file, you would put this in that way, but it is pretty typical for web server software, if you were to just request like this, to have it actually silently interpret that as though the user had asked for index.html, which is basically the behavior this is implementing, which is typical in the servers I've seen as well. So I think that's definitely a good idea to add. The location still behaves the same. So I don't know what the other, what would the way, I guess it would. Just doesn't work, I guess, basically. It doesn't automatically do it. If you had index inside there and you wanted it to get served, it wouldn't by default. You would need to do something. You need to specify it. I have just a disable. Nice if you didn't to pop it out. That's not how it is though. Okay. Style directory listing. No. Well, I think as an example, that might be cool. Not as the default behavior though. Just because it's too much like overhead, I think. But it might be cool if, I think it would be cool as an example to say like, here's an implementation of page that's kind of what that looks like, Apache style. If I'm picturing the right thing, it's like kind of just a blank sort of FTP looking interface, just a blank page with a list of hyperlinks, for all the different, basically like the S3, right? In CircuitPython.org. basically this kind of thing, where it's like plain page with links. You know, folders are links. You click inside the folder in order to go into it, and then it lists out all the files. But yeah, I don't think we would want it to do that by default necessarily. Yeah. Okay, so we'll double check that it works as intended. We'll double check that when we make the request that it serves index.html. And as long as it does, I think this is good as is. I think I agree with every one of these. Yeah, Mitch Okusa, I think I agree. Basically, just, you know, it would make sense in CPython world where we're not limited by RAM or file size or anything else really. Any practical limits, right? Like we just basically, it's practically unlimited for most of what generally people using it on this level are going to care about. But on the microcontroller, it's a bit different. Oop, that didn't work. Check out, spelled it wrong. Just have the Feather PFT still plugged in. I think we can use that, right? HTTP server old. Serve maybe. How's it going, DigiDevin? Back maybe. Interesting. The OBS, yeah, the OBS definitely cut out and came back. We'll start with this, but I think we'll have to take this part out in order to actually test the new version. I guess we should, honestly, we should probably start by testing the old version, honestly, if we want to like make sure the new behavior is different. Let's actually delete that. Means this will start failing because it doesn't have the library. Actually, it doesn't have the secret stuff. Huh. Well, alright. This didn't actually delete. A module. Circuit. Okay, 1 second. don't think those... I think maybe that's... I don't think that's going to work with dots in the version of this that I have. Although I guess maybe, is it reading the toml file? Maybe it's like automatically reading the toml file? Settings. Version are we on? See? Well, let's see what it does. That's subscriptable. Okay, 1 second. That's what I'm going to run, but I don't know what all it's going to print, so I'm going to do it over here. Yeah, okay. I don't know, I think maybe... Okay. Found out all the cowbells might have flood chips. Have I noticed any issues for switch 8 or 16? I have not noticed any issues with it. It did everything I've ever done with it, behaved exactly as expected, as far as I could tell. I can't say as though I did, like... I mean, I definitely did not specifically try, like, index 8 and index 16. Or 7 and 15 or whatever. I did not try those ones specifically, but I don't recall ever having any kind of weird behavior with any of them. I'll give it a try. But yeah. Live but not live. Yeah, Twitch froze up completely, but YouTube okay. Had to restart it. Yeah, it must have buffered pretty well, or I guess maybe it was specifically OBS that cuts out. Usually when that happens, it's actually just like my internet seems to cut out for a couple of seconds and then comes back sometimes. I don't know if it's like, yeah, I don't know what it is. It doesn't happen regularly enough for me to like effectively troubleshoot it, basically. So unfortunately, it happens every now and then, and as it's while I'm streaming. Usually it comes back quick. I haven't been able to actually pin it down to specific cause. But usually that's what it is. Interestingly, this time I do have a stream running over here that I'm watching, and it didn't cut out at all. But like the buffering, I think buffering sometimes covers the gap to where like it actually had enough to not cut out while we were going. Okay. Originally, I thought it would cause lockups on the chip. Oh yeah, definitely have not had any lockup where like, I mean, I assume at that point it would stop responding to inputs after that, basically. But yeah, I've definitely not had anything like that. I'll bust it back out sometime and try the 8 and 16 specifically. Like we can put those on specifically and run through the loop a couple of times. I think it's all other bits on that port incorrectly read as one. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I think at least for the Well, the multiplexer thing basically, so like when it's in the weird state, it would basically register as presses on the other 7 buttons that are on that bank or whatever, which I also have definitely not ever seen. It would be kind of interesting if you intentionally made it to where like each time you turned one button, it would also flop the state of the ones next to it or something. Always be changing more than one thing at once. Okay, so this is running the basic version here, but this does already have the handler for that. We do have an index page. What did that say? 113, and it is on port 80, which is somewhat rare. Usually test servers, they tend to use a different port. So right now today, if we just do this, as of right now, we do get index.html served to us, but the reason why is because our function that defines it there says this in it. We did not have this function. Close that all the way and just retry. So this like half worked, half didn't work, basically. 404 is what I got. The 404 response. So we got a response, but the response is a status 404. It's certainly not a file or anything like that. And then if you specify it, then you can go to it, but it just doesn't happen automatically without specifying it. So new version, I already checked out. I'll copy it back to the device. Done. So now we're going to run the same code again with this commented out again. So theoretically, well, I shouldn't say theoretically, just the previous behavior was when we countered to what it looks like. I never actually did just clear it out. That's why I cleared it out last time, was just to make it so it's like totally fresh. But so when we specified this, it worked. We were able to find the page and it comes back and that's all good. And that's what we were looking at a second ago. And then the old behavior was when we did this by itself, we got 404 not found. This time when we do this by itself, we should get our index. We need the slash? I don't know if we need the slash. Nope, turns out we don't. Kind of curious what happens though. Is it any different without the slash? Nope, same thing. In fact, something redirected it. Looks like we got a 301 probably, which redirected it back to no slash. Yeah, and I don't know, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, So like I have a lot more experience with Nginx as opposed to Apache. But I'm not actually certain the way this behaves in Nginx. I want to say that I think this will not find index.html that's inside of that folder, but I could be wrong. But it definitely will find the base. Spin up Nginx on a Raspberry Pi or something. I mean, I guess I could run it locally on my computer. I don't necessarily want to. Anyway, I don't think it matters too much for this either way, because I think it's fine to forego that behavior even if the big server does do it, just because we're in a more limited environment. Really excited to see Gambler's progress with GIFs. Yeah, me too. With M7s on the horizon, hopeful for something around 15 FPS. Yeah, I could get like 3 FPS, but that's more than a SPY bus limitation, I think. Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. I will say, I think it probably depends on the size of the GIF a lot. Like, full screen GIF, probably relatively slow, but really small icon GIF, 32 by 32 or 16 by 16 or something to that effect, I think it probably could animate. I mean, I would assume it can animate just as fast as a tile grid can, which is enough for like, convincing animation of a sprite or something, like walking or stuff kind of like that. It got me thinking actually earlier today. I wonder if there's any possibility that PIO on the SPY, on the Pico, I should say, if it can be used for SPY, and then secondarily, if it can be used for displays, and then like, does that actually, like, would that speed up displayio if it could output through a SPY bus that is being run by the PO peripheral things? Like, I don't really know enough about them to know if any of that really makes sense or not, and if we would really expect it to speed it up, if so. But maybe, and if so, that sounds like an interesting idea to potentially get faster display stuff. Is like, if you really want a super fast display and you can dedicate enough of those PO pins to driving the SPY, if it actually does speed it up, that might be an option for situations where you do want to be able to do stuff. But yeah, I guess there is some limit still of the bus itself, but there must be some way to refresh screens relatively quickly, depending on the screen, I guess. Doing a full screen on the Featherwing TFT. I went full bore on the as big as a kid. I gotcha. Yeah, it's tough. It'll be interesting to see where it ends up. The fact that it's in native code is definitely gonna help it out as best as it can. Faster than potentially using like image load and tile grids with multiple frames. I don't know. Is microcontroller one word, 2 words, hyphen? I'm not actually sure. was trying to do a full screen animated. Oh, I skipped one at least. Let's see. Trying to do some sprite animations as animated GIFs. Library for just animated GIFs would be awesome. I put it through its paces. Trying to do full screen animated clown background for the weather. Ah, yeah, it'll be tough, I think, for like a full PyPortal size screen. I don't really know what to expect either, though. Truthfully, like my instinct is that it'll be fairly slow for that full size screen, but I don't actually know. Not really ironically, I guess I was about to say, but you know what device would probably be able to iterate them really quick is the matrix portal, since it's so small. You had a 32 by 64 or even two of them to make a 64 by 64. Would guess that could animate quite quickly just because it's so much fewer pixels. The pixels really do start to scale up the time it takes. The other thing that, well, I don't know about GIF encoding, so I don't know if it's different or not, but with the bitmaps, one thing that does actually sometimes matter is how many colors it has. If you have fewer colors, sometimes it can take up less RAM. I don't know, would it go any faster? I actually don't know if it would render any faster, I guess, but it can take up less RAM. Like if you have a 2-color bitmap or a 3-color bitmap and you specifically cut the palette down to just those 2 or 3 colors rather than having, 200 colors in a palette or something like that. IPO will be interesting. I need to do some like low-level, just like welcome to PO type stuff, basically. I need to get my head wrapped around a little bit better what it really is and what it can be used for. I kind of get conceptually it's a way to be able to kind of have the CPU offload the reading and writing of those pins, but it seems like it also can go really, really fast. With things like the Scorpio and stuff like that, like the way Scott's using it for the logic analyzer. Like it has to be able to keep caught up really, really fast. So I'm curious if it's, as an output device, if it's like something that would speed up the display writing or not. There might be a physical limit in the displays we use as well. I guess one thing would be to compare Arduino code. I would assume Arduino code would run a bit faster. So if there's an Arduino GIF player or any kind of Arduino code that refreshes the display as fast as it can, we could compare that to CircuitPython. That might be interesting. That would tell us like if there is room for improving the speed. It sounds like a couple bits and pieces from Jeff's meeting notes the last, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, or sometime recently. I feel like I remember though Jeff mentioning potentially looking to dig around for some ways to improve displayio speed or efficiency. Now I'm second guessing whether it was speed or more so efficiency, but doesn't have a ton of color. Yeah, that's perfect. So that's one thing to try, is double check how many colors you have in there. Sometimes, like certain editing software, it will create you the maximum size palette and just fill it with black or white or whatever. Even if you're not using all the colors, it will create a bigger palette in case you wanted to use them. Might be worth double checking that. So there is another one in. What is this one? Very fix. I heard about 8, potentially 8 release. So maybe this. 6. Not sure where that fits in. This one may not be needed anymore. I'm not sure. Take a closer look at that one afterwards. But there is this one. I think. Do we want to? Yeah, I think let's make a release of the other one, just so there's a release with that specific behavior. Even if we're gonna review this one, possibly merge it, and end up with another release in a little bit, that's fine. We'll go. I think we go middle number 220. I think we're gonna go because there's a new feature. The new feature is automatically serves index even if the user doesn't request it specifically, for the root directory specifically though. Well, this is a bit of a different last year. Hasn't been a release since last year? Yeah, I guess so. The kind of boilerplate is a bit different than I'm used to. I guess this is like closer to CircuitPython, which would make sense for Dan. We'll change log. I mean, we have relatively minor last ending bytes in the response. I wonder how this gets, I wonder if this is like automated somehow? Does Dan have to write all of this stuff out? Kind of interesting. I wonder if we could be using this. I think this is like what the CircuitPython releases look like. I wonder if we could be using that in the libraries. I tend to copy paste the boilerplate from the previous one and try to just say what's in the release. It might be cool to be able to have like all those links though, honestly, like the changelog, having it all listed out, and then like PRs. It must not be automatic, right? Dan must. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it'd be. You had to manually compile those or what? Go 220. Oops. Say automatically serve index.html. Root. HX and ILI displays are more capable than the SPI bus itself. PO is a different angle. Haven't tried yet. Done a lot of work to server lately, HTTP server. I was happy to see. Yeah, I recall him saying that. Let's release. Let's see, this release contains new behavior that will automatically serve index.html. User sends a request to the base URL. Automatically? HTML? No, I think HTML is probably spelled right. CircuitPython is probably. Oh, that said undo. Oh, undo. I see the previous one. Oh, now this is gone. I don't know if those are going to save. Okay, 220, let's double check. Yeah, 210, 220, definitely newer. I forgot to put thank you to the person here, which is what makes it appear the icons here. I don't think I'm supposed to edit these either. If you edit it, I think the assets can get messed up, so unfortunately we gotta forego it on this one. Buffer size improvements. Expose buffer size in response.send file. Adjust the default response to match the one in server. Use server's buffer size when auto-serving files. Current architecture, I don't see an easy way to bound the send file's buffer size to the one that exists in server. Not sure I follow. Inside response, we have buffer size, which is new. Argument defaults to 1024. File is split into buffer size parts. This is send file response. Oh, I see. Okay, so previously we would open the file and then read 2048 bytes into this, and then send the bytes that we read, and then loop back around and read another 2048 bytes. So now it's just going to be buffer size instead, and it is 1024 instead of 2048. Then in server, it says buffer size. Well, it's passing the request buffer size, which comes from somewhere. Request buffer size comes from here. Maximum size of the incoming request buffer. If the default size isn't adequate, handle your incoming data. You can set this after creating the server instance. Default size is 1024. Set it as a property. Basically just puts a byte array into self._buffer, the specified size. So, where does the actual default come from, though? I guess that's just buffer size. It's from send file. This was calling send file, so they added. Actually, no, where? So I guess really what we would need to find is where does this get? There we go. Okay, where does this get initialized the first time? So inside a init, it creates this, and it is 1024. I wonder, should we not? Should we not add it to the constructor? Server init. Is there a reason why we don't want to have like buffer none or something, right? Like this could be passed in, and then that way the user could specify it, or I guess actually even maybe just buffer size. Buffer size. Then you could pass this in and it would use it here. That way it would not create a 1024 size buffer only for you to turn around and change it. Because like this, it will create a 1024 size inside of here and then throw it away as soon as you execute this line and create a new 2048 size and store it back in the same variable. I guess let's try it out, make sure there's no other issues with it. If the functionality works, I don't see any reason to necessarily not take it now and then just ask about that, and maybe if we want to do that in the future we could. That does seem like a nice improvement to me as well, though, because it would, especially with the sample code that's here, it would save us an allocation of that big buffer. Big-ish, I don't know, is 1024 big, I guess? I don't really have a sense for what's big and what's small, maybe. Back how it was. Probably need to do this, right? Because we merged on the other side, so let's update this. It does, yeah. If nothing else, it does make sense to equalize them, right? Because the size definitely was different in one of them. Okay, 1 second, I'm gonna read this, but I can't show it on my screen, sorry. Start making machine. Keyboard. Sorry, we're getting close to almost done. Yeah, I can link to oh, nope, that wasn't it. Ah, okay, I went the wrong. At least have some chance to look at the thing I'm looking at. Toasty macro pad. Nice. So this wooden macro pad looks pretty sweet. Dial on there. Nice looking caps. Fake toast. Well, next to it I think was fake toast. Or next to it I think maybe it was real toast, but the actual thing is fake toast. You know, Melissa's been getting into CNC. I can see some potential for real potential for a CNC. Yeah, you can make some pretty amazing stuff. I got a cheapo little CNC. I don't play with it as much as I should anymore. I don't think I have set it up since we moved into this house. Actually, it's been a little while. It's an interesting thing though. I got into it there for a little bit. I was like CNCing all kinds of vector SVG stuff onto some little slats of wood. You can make some really cool stuff for sure. It'd be definitely cool to do some cutouts and stuff like that to make those keycaps. Yeah. So if nothing else, like for sure, definitely for sure, it is good that this is now consistent, right? Because it used to be 2048 inside of response, but 1024 inside of, well, we have origin. Let me let's fix that. I could probably, right? Maybe I'll make a script that will like go through all of my things and fix any origin things to be not origin. Did you see a cowbell? I could not. The one I have is like teeny tiny. It's the other browser. I don't recall the exact size of the bed, but it is not. I'm pretty sure it's not big enough. I mean, you could do it similarly to the way you print it, I guess, where you could do like sections or something, right? And then put them together. That would work. See if they have this listed on their website. I don't know. I bought it from Micro Center. This is bigger, I think. Mine is square. They don't have the exact same one. This has got to be like the lineal sort of newest version of it, though. It was around this price point, and it was square though. This one is actually rectangular. You might have a better chance. There's nothing really for scale. I guess I roughly know the size of these things, I suppose, but it's tough to multiply that up. But this definitely looks wider than the one I've got. Mine, it feels like, is basically the short side of this, and then square instead of rectangular. So you get that. What does it actually say it is? 300 by 180. So then, yeah, my guess would be mine is somewhere around like 180 by 180, even 150. I should bust that thing back out. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the step files you could use to cut one. I see what you're saying. Oh dang, printer has a laser engraver. I've seen like videos of ones with attachable ones where you can swap out the head and do that. I've never actually seen one in real life. That's pretty awesome. I'm gonna get back to main just to see. So server here had 1024, but then response had 2048. Except, was it? Send file. Right. Yeah. Okay. So response definitely had 20, and I'm looking at main now, so this is not the PR one. This is the current release. So 2048 in response, and then 1024 in here. So those should definitely be the same, no matter what. And then I do think kind of the other part of the PR is not only making them the same, but also making it configurable with the argument to send file. I think is nice. If you know that you are going to return a thing that's bigger than that, and you also know that your project doesn't use up any other RAM or too much other RAM, I guess, for other stuff, you know that you'll have this chunk available and you want to use it for that, then that is nice to be able to raise that because you lessen the number of chunks needed. So if you wanted to raise it, you could fit more in a single send rather than having to loop. So I'm definitely on board with the change itself, and the code does seem fine to me. I will basically just test out the example scripts and make sure that everything still runs. Nice thing about CNC is the source material can stick out and be reoriented a few times to carve out larger pieces. Yeah. I've seen some super fancy ones that can like rotate the thing it's working on in a few different axes. Crazy intricate cuts, weird angles. It's not copy for some reason. I would assume that our file is nowhere near big enough to need nine bytes. Well, we can test it. Refresh this. And that doesn't work though, but it's because that was a separate PR, which means it doesn't have that new behavior that we just merged into main. But it also doesn't conflict with it, I don't think. So as soon as we merge this PR, then main would actually have the behavior of both. It's not gonna like switch it back. Just this test branch won't have it. Okay, so that does work fine. I will put enough stuff in there to make it bigger, so that it's bigger than 1024 bytes. That's 2408. Seems like an odd number to generate, but It's good. Technically, that one was would have been like multiple send chunks or whatever. I don't think you would see it on this side because I think the browser, all the communication like abstracts all that away. But yeah, it transferred 2.66K. I suppose theoretically, if we really wanted to validate how many times through the loop it is, you could modify it to print something. It matters though. Three times with this one, iteration, iteration, iteration. So, and then actually what we could do, we wanted to get super fancy here. Where's this called from? Which sets request buffer size. So then if we actually changed it, to 2048, then it should only get 2 iterations, I think. Nice. And if we make it even bigger, we should be able to get it down to just 1. We actually have enough room for this, I don't know. Seems fine. There we go. We got only 1 iteration. Sweet. So 230, I think, right? This is another new feature. Basically, send file buffer size argument. I could, yeah. I could. I just like lorem ipsum. Honestly, I forget about multiplying strings. So while I know that that exists if you ask me about it or if I think about it, like I know that's a thing in Python, but I don't ever think about it whenever I need a bunch of test data. For whatever reason, like lorem ipsum is the default place that my head goes when I need a bunch of test data rather than the multiplying. But that's definitely more convenient because it doesn't need to be generated. But on the converse side, there are some amusing lorem ipsum generators out there that generate lorem ipsum that's vaguely related to more entertaining and amusing things. So sometimes I use those, and it brings me enjoyment, which is nice. I think it was that, right? Okay, yeah. Okay. I did not double check my numbers, which I should have probably before I did that. I think we're good. Oh, 220, yeah. Okay. There as well. Okay. I am going to go for a walk real quick. So it's probably going to be about 10 to 15 minutes. What I'll do is leave a countdown if I can. Let's see. Leave a countdown, but then I plan to come back and just continue streaming. So instead of cutting out the stream and having it spawn up as a new video later on or whatever, I'll just do this. I'll make a little countdown. I don't have one ready to go, but I think I can use this thing somehow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. That's a bit more. And a bit more control over it than I really need, but there's no just hours, minutes, seconds. Maybe we can have like maybe there's an easier one than this. Nice if Google had one. There we go. Okay, that's more what I'm looking for. Well, let's say like 15 minutes, I think, probably. We'll do a short walk and then I'll come back. So if you don't want to hang around for that, that's totally fine. I get it. But I'll leave this going and then I'll come back and kind of pick up where I left off. So I'll be back in a bit. See you all then. I do need to put min. Oh, it's not actually working. Okay, so we'll do 15 here. There we go. Okay, and we're back. 90 seconds to spare. Yeah, I agree. The countdown is nice, just so people, if anybody does happen to tune in during while you're gone, it's nice if they like know that it's not just frozen or something. I need to make a more specific one and get it loaded up inside OBS. It'd be nice if I had. Maybe we could I like record a matrix portal somehow, then cut it back together so that it doesn't have to run live, but it can basically be a countdown for me? Should be possible somehow, right? I mean, I guess I could just record it for a couple of different common times, like record a 5-minute one and a 15-minute one or whatever, and then just have it loaded up as a video. That's probably the best way to do it. Easiest way to do it. I will say I'm curious / interested to implement some more HTML content for OBS, though. It's intriguing to me the way that you can integrate HTML content with OBS. I feel like that's something I could probably get some pretty decent stuff done with that I haven't really played with all too much, but I know is a possibility. Okay, so this one may be no longer necessary. If I'm understanding right, they were saying basically this is kind of fixed in beta 7, so anything newer than that. Of course, did we actually end up with a beta 7? I mean, I think we ended up on RC after that. I don't know that we did have a beta 7 or not. Nice. Yeah, I appreciate the link there. Take a look at that later on. Did we actually? I think we did not. We ended up with like. Ooh. Oh, missed it 1 hour ago. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. My CircuitPython release song. It's really more of like a sound effect than a song. Wouldn't quite call that a song. So we had candidate beta. Did have a beta. Oh yeah. So we had a beta 6 and then RC1. Yeah, RC1 and then RC2. But then what they call beta 7 just went on to actually be called RC1 instead of beta 7. Yeah. And that is was merged a while ago and is in. So RC1, RC2, and now 8.0.0 should have what we need. So therefore, I think this is no longer necessary, if I'm understanding correctly. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right exact way it works with the dash and the dot or whatever, but person's still active. That was one of the persons involved in that other thread we were just on. It's cool. Read through this one later on, I'm not sure. They were just having trouble. Should maybe try to revalidate if that's like, if whatever it is still an issue or not. And quite a few changes since then. Okay, I think I will have another look through CircuitPython.org. If anything jumps out as a relatively quick one that I haven't already laid eyes on yet. This I did look at earlier today. This we looked at earlier today, .star. This one seems interesting to me, but I don't have the hardware for it. I would be curious to give it a try. I don't really know anything about the devices it's for, so I don't feel like I have much to offer in terms of a review beyond like testing it out if I did get the hardware. But I don't have the hardware yet, so can't do anything. HTTP server we looked at. GPS I don't have the hardware for. I guess maybe I'll take a... I have looked at this one before. I don't think I understood much of what it was, but maybe I'll go back and take a look again with an eye towards trying to learn more about it. Add write. Okay, yeah, this was ours actually from last time. We got an improved there. This could merge now. One 140. I think we'll do that. So this is like equalize the API to the core. That's not a really eloquent way to say it though. Match core implementation API. Let's just say other libraries. And I think, are the examples new? I think I added the examples with this, so maybe we could say, yeah, maybe we could say C, RGB matrix animations for an example. Okay, 137, 140 is definitely newer. This is now resolved. I'd pick up 2 of these. We could try this one of these days. I don't think this is what I'm gonna tackle right now. I don't have 3. I could do the eye, I guess. Eyeglasses and then 2 matrices. We'll leave that one. Take another quick look through here. And I think I'm gonna dive back into the core displayio stuff. I do need to follow up on my PR. I think that's been reviewed. String corrections. Annotations. Relatively small one. Look over. Typing. Typing extensions literal bus IO. Change the name of these to be full names. Oh, okay, these are not arguments, these are just settings. Upper, lower, vertical. 2C for the bus, int for the address, returns none for init. Temperature returns float. Look there, tempconf, just typed here as float at least, and then indeed it has division of a float, so this will definitely be a float when this whole thing evaluates. This returns from there, which actually gets called from here, which means it gets returned from here as well. It's that type. Temp integer. It was already typed here as an integer, which is nice. Address also was an integer, although it has only 3 actual valid values, so literal is even better. This way your IDE will warn you if you don't use one of the 3 valid values, and then default is actually lower limit. I don't know if these ones support literal like this or not. That would be more like read the docs / Sphinx. I'm not sure. Not sure if they support it the same way as the typing in Python or not, but. And that was on well, that was T address, register address for the temperature limit. This one is address here. It's the literal, and then returns a float, which is coming from tempconf, which we saw before. This one's internal leading underscore, which is probably why it doesn't have a doc string for Sphinx. Int on temp, and then address is our same literal from before, and then this is just calling into same thing we just looked at here, I think, right? Yeah, limit temperatures is this one, so that was int, and then our literal. So this is just passing straight along, so it makes sense that it would match, return none. Upper temperature, float, calls get temperature, which calls temp converge, convert, probably, is what that's short for. We already looked at before, which that was float. Upper temperature, int, and then returns none, because that one is a setter. And that is setting the first argument of that function we already looked at, which was an int. Lower temperature getter returns a float. Lower temperature setter takes an int, returns none. Critical temperature returns a float. That's just a third, like upper, lower, critical. They all 3 are basically the same thing. They just are 3 different variables essentially that can store different temperatures that have different like alarm statuses or whatever. This thing can tell you when they go over a certain threshold, the microcontroller, if you want to like take some action based on reaching a certain temperature or whatever. This thing can help you do that. Float, and then it just has like 3 different target temperatures basically. Pass in the int, return the none, same as the others. Resolution returns a literal 0, 1, 2, 3. It's interesting these ones are just straight ints instead of the x, like hex, like these ones, but I guess that's just because these are addresses of, I suppose addresses of registers probably, whereas these are just enums. It's numbers that represent a thing. Default to 3 does have literal value, and typing extensions added to requirements in order to be able to use literal. It's good to me. $3,319. I think I've been doing the lower number for typing mostly. Like in situations where there was not also a refactor that occurred, like sometimes, I think some of the early ones, there was a refactor same time as the typing. For just the types, I've been doing minimum number before, I think. Of course, what I've been doing before doesn't mean that it's necessarily right. I think that makes the most sense to me though, because it's not really a new feature. I guess it's a new feature in that your IDE behaves differently, but it's not a new feature in that like the library does not behave differently. It's kind of how I interpret the numbers here. Is medium number would go up if the library had different behavior. The tools around it, though, like the meta tools, I don't think of as medium number caliber, if that makes any sense. Inverse stuff. Typing information. Okay. Get up to MCP, that was that one. Did I look at this before? No, I guess not. It's so weird. I feel like I did look at this before, but I must not. And I never commented or approved or anything. That's very deja vu, though. I feel like we went through this. So I came to a conclusion. There's a couple of these ones which I think could possibly close. Need a redo. I think another pass got done. I don't know if any of these are still needed. It's worth checking in with Eva, maybe. and ground. Basically, this is needing testing on a Raspberry Pi. I wonder why the pin matters. Pin 10 is on SPI. Okay, so this is in need of testing on a Raspberry Pi, and also fixing the actions. Which failed because of filling white space. We just need to run pre-commit for that part, at least. Timer support. What is this? PCF? What is that? Real-time clock. Might have one of those. I'm not sure. I have some RTC things like that. Block B. I've been doing a lot of improvements to my Pygame display library for Blinka displayio. This is basically just adding new functionality to the library by adding a bunch of extra registers and things that the chip itself supported but were not implemented in the library yet. I'll have to double check if that's a thing I have or not. I've looked through this one before, but I don't remember what state it's in. Content length. This is draft, yeah. That's another thing I want to circle back to one of these days as well, is it'd be nice if this page would have draft or whatever, like if it would tell you which ones are drafts. Which is something I sat down to look at a couple of times, and just have not had success, basically. At least one of the times I couldn't get my token to work right, and then there was like something where because my token wasn't working right, then I was limited to a certain number of requests per hour that was much lower. So then it started failing, and I have since successfully used my token for more requests, though, I'm pretty sure. So I think at this point I know how to at least use it. So it's worth getting back around to. Community helpers description. Basically, it looks like just a sentence or so for each one. Therapy. I see. Probably gonna get loud, potentially. I don't know if the noise gate will cut it out or not, but loud motorcycles firing up. The window's open because it's super nice out, by the way. That's part of why I wanted to go for a walk. Some API tokens will time out after 30 days now, but if you use it within 30 days, it'll renew. Yeah, it gives you a choice when you create them. I've created them a couple of different ways. I think what it was is like initially when I did it, it wasn't actually using my token. Like I thought I had put it in the right spot or whatever, but it was not actually being used. And so it was just unauthenticated, which works, but has a much lower, like much lower limit. And it was not able to even make all the requests it needed to like render this page using that much lower limit. But with the real one, I believe it can, no problem. And even a bunch of times over if you need to test something. Okay. Rest of the time, I think I'm gonna jump back to displayio inside the core. I do have to run to the restroom first, then I'll get back to it. At least start this thing running. Maybe fetch. I guess maybe that's the thing that will take the longest, so BRB. Okay. Cut down the number of zombie keys available. Yeah, unfortunately, I have a lot of zombie keys because they, because of the way you can't access them after they're created. So then I create a new one. But I also don't want to delete the old one because, like, I saved it into something, and whatever the something I saved it into, I don't want that to stop working. So I think they should just show you your key when you come back if you like put in your password and are authenticated and everything. I get the idea they're going for, but I don't think in practicality it works because it makes it annoying to use. Makes people more motivated to save it somewhere else, which I guess pushes it out of their world, which is what they want, but I don't know. They should just let you get back to it if you have your password and everything. Be able to see it again. Maybe like accept the risks or whatever, or maybe you could make one that you're allowed to, like maybe it's a separate one, just like the expiration times are different or whatever. Maybe there could just be one that's like, you know, re-accessible or whatever. Hopefully that's not too loud. I suspect they'll be coming back probably too, so. Person that lives across the street has a loud motorcycle that they like to fire up, and today's a particularly nice day, so I'm not surprised at all that they're firing it up today. But they usually just take it out real quick and then come back around. Just keeping it running over the winter, I think, is the deal. So I suspect they'll be back pretty soon. And then it will be loud again. Hopefully it's cutting it out. I'm curious about this. 254. So inside bullet, 254 to 242. I should probably take my hoodie off. Check. Oh. Out of range of target. Already a range check. So it's a slightly different, there is a range check here, but it's a slightly different kind of range check. Because it is just, whereas the arg check ones, which we have been adding, are like these MP arg validate. This is a different one, this is validate type, but they are like that. So essentially this person, which I should say hug report, by the way, thank you. Well, I think I put it in the notes for the meeting, but definitely thanks again to G Nevrov. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, or if it's supposed to be just one word or whatever. Nevrov, maybe the G is silent, I'm not sure, but either way, thank you to that person for sure. Appreciate the extra look over, and they've been working on some other stuff in CircuitPython as well, which looks really cool too. So I think so, right? I think they listed out like some async IO stuff. I think they're working on maybe async HTTP type stuff, if I recall correctly. Could be wrong, but that's what's in my mind at least, which definitely sounds pretty sweet. So basically they were saying, because these are int 16 here, we actually have another one of those situations where if a person had passed a, in this case it's not a negative one, it's actually a large one instead of a negative one, but similar concept where if the person had passed a wrong kind of value, because of the way it's getting stored and truncated, it's going to wrap back around to the other end of the number line. To which they say possibly replace with int32 or mp-int. I think, though, we want to restrict more so if we can. I think we want to restrict if we can, rather than allowing these to be a larger number by making it an int32, or I assume this is also a larger number, MicroPython int. I'm not entirely clear on like differences between those two specifically, or really how this one works at all, but instead of just allowing a bigger space, I think it might be better to just limit these. So if they pass in a value that's too big for this reason, then instead of making it work because we changed this variable to be bigger, we actually just say, no, that's too big. Because I think we can't have a bitmap this size anyway. Which Jeff mentioned on these ones, should these be validated for maximum as well? Surely 32767 is a reasonable maximum, as we have 16-bit types anyhow. Which is like half of this one, I'm not sure. Maybe it's negatives versus only positives or something. But yeah, I think I'm actually inclined to just add maximums of this maybe to everything practical, right? Because we're never, well, I shouldn't say never, but at least currently we can't use a bitmap that is that big. It will fail for some reason or another. Even if we let these be 32, there's just not enough RAM. Like, there's going to be other reasons why it doesn't work, so can we just, so this is the part where I'm less, oh, okay, just x, right, x, y, and x. Let's go look in argcheck, actually. We want to see, there's a range, I think, right? Yeah, range. We should be using range for some of these. So it has min, max, so it's basically the same, just it also takes a min with the number. So number, minimum, we will say is 0. Maximum, let's put, for now, let's hard code what Jeff said. Got minimum, maximum, QString. Wrong file. This is X, so that is shouty mp q string non-shouty X. And I think I'll just do X and Y first, and then whoops, try it, see if it works. And we'll do X1, Y1 also, probably. Anything else that needs to be in there. This does mean we can probably lose this, too. I'll leave it in for now, but I think we can cut this code, because functionally this will do the same and more. Oh, no, it's going to be different, actually, though, right? Because this is doing... It is actually going to be different. This one is limiting, you know, to like the biggest reasonable value. These are actually limiting to the width of the thing. Do we have self.width when we're up here? .blit? We should, right? Source. Does anything else in here use self? Yeah, it has self bits per value. Maybe we should do self width right here. Because then the code would be the exact same. I mean, not like the code would not be the exact same, but the behavior, the limits. Hopefully I can use this kind of arrow dot thing here. I'm not yelling your, yeah. Congratulate G Neverov, yeah. Yeah, they're working on some cool stuff. And like they've come into the community more recently, they're definitely got some really neat looking stuff going on. And are getting involved in reviews and stuff as well, which is really super nice. We'll just keep going on the device I got, which is the Feathered TFT, so expressive port. We gotta do this. Nope, ESP. Oh, they're back. Export. Shell. I don't know for sure. I think that was successful because it doesn't say like firmware. See any red go by though. Imaginary number and preprocessor expression. Let's do a clean. The terminal pop-up thing is like showing itself, but then spawning underneath the thing, so then hiding itself, but then showing itself, but then hiding itself. I'm always amused by infinite loops in real life that are just like not program that I'm working on, but oops, somebody made an infinite loop accidentally. And that terminal pop-up is 1. So yeah, we got a good build after clean. I don't know what that was, but it was something related to old build probably. It's actually, so right now the stuff on our device is HTTP server. This is the one I was doing argcheck stuff in. Might as well just put it back. Gov negative. Not sure which version I have currently. Okay, y value must be greater than 0. Okay. Do we put time sleep back into here maybe? Since we are going to be going back to doing some that are potentially broken more. Go to bootloader mode. Our version is exact same as before. That's because we haven't actually done any of the new stuff. So that was all inside Blit, I believe, right? Yeah. Which I actually don't know exactly what to use Blit. We need to come up with code that uses it so we can test it. Inserts the source bitmap region defined by rectangular boundaries. XY source bitmap. X1, Y1, X2, Y2 skip index. So we're going to need 2 bitmaps. And this has basically given us the ability to paste one into another, to copy a chunk out of one and paste it into another. So we already have one bitmap with a palette that has 3 colors. Let's turn this stuff off for now. Let's turn that off. So we just make our bitmap and show it. Maybe set that a little bit lower. Okay. That's a 40 by 40. It's currently filled with yellow, which is the 0 index. Go 20 by 20. Colors 3. It's going to be the same 3. pixel shader. Same palette. Other tile grid dot, no, other bitmap dot fill 1. So our 20 by 20 is actually filled with red. If we were to show it, which we could by going main group, pinned, other tile grid. Let's move it also for now. So we have another one which is red. So now let's say we want to, let's do something actually slightly different. I know this is I mean, like, this is enough to test it as is for now, but I actually want this other one to have something that's not just a solid fill. Can you do length of bitmap? Will that tell you the number of pixels? Oops. No. I could do width times height though, I guess. Except it's on other bitmap here. This makes it checkerboard. So basically set it to 1 if it's an even pixel in the index, else set it to 0 if it's an odd pixel in the index. We don't want 1 and 0 though, actually. I want to use 1 and 2. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that worked. Because now it's yellow and red. It's like slightly orange. It's easier to see if you look at it straight on. The camera doesn't necessarily do it justice, but it's there. But I do want to use actually 1 and 2, not 0 and 1. That way we have 2 totally different colors that are not used on the first square. Okay, perfect. So now I basically have, I don't know if it's columns. It looks like stripes. I was expecting checkerboards. Maybe it is a checkerboard, but maybe it's actually stripes. Either way, it looks purple because it alternates back and forth, red and blue. Actually, know if I have this thing loaded still. Oh, it crashed. Yeah, doesn't really look any better, but if you look at it to the naked eye, you can see it's like alternating. You know, I guess one thing we could do is set the scale bigger. Be a little bit easier to see. Yeah, it's actually columns. Interesting. I was expecting checkerboards. Yeah, I don't really have any reason to expect checkerboards though, right? Columns definitely seems right now that I'm thinking about it, because columns aren't offset by 1, so the rows are not offset by 1, I should say. It's really the way I think about it more. But anyway, that looks like it worked. So now that we have something that's not just a solid fill, let's go ahead and blit that into the first one. So first of all, we could even just, we don't have to actually show it in order to be able to blit from it. So we could go bitmap.blit. So we're going to have XY, let's say 1010. Source bitmap is going to be other bitmap. And then X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So I'm just going to go 0, 0, and then other bitmap width -1. Other bitmap height -1. So I'm just going to do the full thing for right now. This stuff is quite mad for some reason. Unexpected argument, huh? Maybe we have an old version of this, or... Or those are keyword. Nice. So that basically took a copy of, in our case, the entirety of other bitmap and pasted it into the middle of the original bitmap. We're no longer showing other bitmap on the display at all. We just have copied that piece of it into this one. In our case, the piece is actually the full thing, but we could do less, actually. We could do, you know, half of it if we went like that. In fact, we could make it oblong by just doing half in one direction but not the other. We're going back the other direction on getting smaller, thus harder to see, but we could also do this and it would make an even smaller one. Okay. So the crux of this is when you... Well, X and Y are the ones we've done so far, so just these. And so the crux of that would have been like a negative here. Let's do -1 only, though. Nice. So line 52, which was this, we got X must be between 0 and 40. Which is because our bitmap here is 40 by 40. So the indexes are 0 to 39. So 40 should be too big to get the same error. But it did not actually. Interesting. Oh, I guess it would need to be -1 though, right? That's a logic error on my part. That's off by 1, right? This should be, can you just -1 here? I don't know if that works. I'll say I have not quite mastered the idea that like some of these things are actual numbers that you can just do math with, and others of these things are like MicroPython numbers that are objects that represent numbers that you can't necessarily just do math with on directly. I have yet to actually clearly figure out which ones are which and when you can do what with which ones, but you think the logic like that should be -1. Looks like it's working. So it's probably one of those things where if it wasn't the right kind of one, then it would have failed on compile, so. Oh, I didn't actually get it. Oh, 0 for 2. Okay, let it chill for a second. I don't want to reset it too many times too fast. Oh my goodness. Missed it again. Going too fast, I think. There we go. Actually, the old logic looks off by 1 to me as well. Yeah. Now we have the right one here, so 40 should get filtered out. Yeah. But truthfully, looking at the old code, goes off by 1, right? Because x will, if x is equal to width, that is technically out of range as well, since it's a 0-based index. I could kind of see the case for wanting to allow it to be outside. But I guess the truth is, like, if you want it, if you want it to be outside, you can still achieve the same thing by just manipulating these values. Like, what happens if you put it close to the edge? Like, what would happen if I put it at like 38? So technically, it should run off the side, and I guess it does allow that. So I suppose you could make the case that negatives ought to be allowed at least to match the edge behavior, since it's allowed to like overrun the right side, but it's not actually allowed to, you know, underrun the left side. I could see the case to be made either way. I think it doesn't actually change the long and the short of it, because you can always use these and manipulate it. So you could always achieve this effect on this side or vice versa. You could always achieve any effect on either side by manipulating your y1 and y2 and x1 and x2. I mean, equally as much, honestly, I could see a case for being made that this one should raise an exception, right? Like maybe this should actually raise the same exception that gets raised if you try to underrun the left side. And it's kind of boils down to the same thing. Like visually, you can achieve the same thing by using different values here. Anyway, I do think we managed to get the X and the Y correct. So I think we can basically add the same things here. These ones will be the source width and height, not self though. So this has special behavior for if you do none, then it will just be the source. Oh, those are exclusive. So those should not actually get the -1. Yeah, because those are exclusive, it means for specifically x2 and y2, those ones actually shouldn't get the... So those ones should still... But these ones should be not this. Actually do allow it to go one bigger, since it's exclusive on that side. And then theoretically, hopefully that's not coming through. This one, probably we don't need any more either. However, I will say too, this one also looks like it would have been off by 1 at some point, since, well, for one thing, it's not different for x1, y1, and x2, y2, whereas they are functionally different. These ones are exclusive. Presumably those ones are not. Yeah. I don't know what, that one didn't, that was not the normal motorcycle, I don't think. That was more dirt bikey or something. Or what it was. It sounded like a bit like a chainsaw or something like that too, though. I think we don't need any of these checks anymore. I think this now all gets caught by our new stuff. What I'll do is I'll leave it in and I'll make a build and I'll try it, and then we'll check and see if we get this printout or not. As long as we don't see that printout, then I think everything will have gotten caught by these already. We could actually get rid of this stuff. Do you think the camera just died? Go over anymore. Nope. Got it going too fast. So, oh, chainsaw motorcycle's back. And then x1 needs to be 0 to 19 because other bitmap is actually 20 by 20. So it's smaller than the other one, whereas this one, xy, could be 0 to 39. I see. I'm playing a shuffle a bunch of cars around. Just hearing people yelling out there. They're just yelling because the cars are loud, though. Shuffle them all around the in and out of the garage. That one's exclusive, so we're allowed to use the full width there instead of the -1. This one is inclusive, so we're not allowed to use it there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we never did see these, so I think these can go out. Technically, all of that same validation happens above. Okay. I think I'm probably going to wrap it up after this. I'll push this stuff. Okay. Push this stuff, and then I'm going to head out for now. I'm going to get ready because we're going to go out and eat this evening. I want to do that. And then I will pick this up next time. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for watching, as always. Hope everyone has a good rest of your evening. Let's double check, make sure this actually pushed here. And we do still have a couple other feedbacks from Jeff to get through, but this is at least part of it from Blit. So, alrighty. Hope everyone has a good night. I will see you all next time. I'll probably pop back in at some point this week, but I'm not entirely sure when. Otherwise, I will definitely be back at the end of the week on Friday for a deep dive. So yeah, I'll see you all next time. Thanks.